SpongeBob Rehydrated is an above-average remake of SpongeBob Battle for Bikini Bottom. Now, I don't exactly believe remakes should happen. I think that if you want to re-release a game, you should re-release the original with perfect accuracy, warts and all, without any concessions besides those necessary to make it play on modern hardware. That said, as far as remakes go, Rehydrated is one of the better ones. It feels like Battle for Bikini Bottom, it sounds like Battle for Bikini Bottom, and the game's mechanics and design are largely intact, barring a few admittedly annoying changes. But it's serviceable enough as someone who played the original quite a bit. That said, we're not talking about the remake as a whole in this video, we're talking about some of its original content. For one reason or another, a multiplayer PvE combat arena mode was added to Rehydrated, wherein you can play as several characters from the SpongeBob series, including Mr. Krabs. It's a wave-based affair where enemies spawn in, you pummel them to death, and then you do some minor platforming to proceed to the next island. Now, I will be the first person to defend Rehydrated and Battle for Bikini Bottom's combat. It's well designed insofar that it requires careful maneuvering and decisive strikes, and there's quite a large variety of vastly different foes. Keeping that in mind, your options in this mode are far more limited than in the main game. You're only really given access to a primary attack and a butt bounce. Presumably, this was to keep the playing field even between characters, but that's a lost cause. Primarily because, as you're seeing, Squidward has a projectile attack, and Mr. Krabs has a useless, very tiny forward-facing stab attack. It's a no-brainer to play as a character with a ranged move, since it plainly gives you an advantage. The game progression is pretty wild. It starts out simple enough with a few waves of 3 to 4 enemies, but swiftly descends into chaos. There are explosions which trigger all across the arenas, enemy spam the likes of which I've never seen in a 3D platformer, and it quickly devolves into madness. The player who comes out on top is simply the one who is best capable of seeing through the visual clutter, bullet hell style, and only intaking the information which is most valuable. In that sense, it's an incredibly fun mental exercise. In the end though, your only reward for victory is knowing that you outperformed your friends, and while I got extremely competitive with my roommate Nathan, I'm betting most folks who played this mode did so on a cooperative basis. Given that, the lack of fanfare for completing this 40-minute trial probably hits like a punch to the gut. Overall, it's just weird. It's weird that there's multiplayer, it's weird that this was the choice for the multiplayer, and it's weird how unbalanced the characters are. Still fun though.